What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Friday. Welcome to another Freedom Friday call. We're so grateful that you're here spending your evening with us. There could be a million things that you're doing, but we have people live here. We have people watching this recording, and we're grateful for you. If this is your first time joining us, we are the Wave Makers. We're a community of people dedicated to creating positive waves of change for ourselves, our environment, and the world. And if you are here, that means that you are vibing on the same frequency. So we're grateful. And we are having our guest speaker tonight, our great friend Laz, that we're interviewing. This is his second time in our call. And we are going to be diving in deep today on, his specialty, which is the Morph X code. Okay, which is something that I'm just learning more about, and I'm super excited to be a part of a full event that he has. He hosts events live. He hosts events in person as well. It's someone that myself and Eric got the chance to spend some time in person, going through some military training. He has some background in that, and I'll let him speak about that if he likes. But just someone that I personally respect, someone that I look up to. Someone that is a representation of discipline and someone who is committed to spreading great things in the world. So it is a pleasure having you here with us again, Laz. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for the introduction. It depends who you ask. So.
I love it, man. Well, thanks again. And so why don't we do this? Before we dive into a little bit of your practices and some of the topics that we're going to cover, on ways that we can integrate the mind and the body and, exercises that can help us find our true selves. Why don't you give your personal background to the people here live from your perspective, since you are the one living, walking those shoes, before we dive into what you do and how you can help all of us.
Sure. Thanks everyone for being on the call. And it's always a pleasure hanging out with this crew, because I know you guys are up to big things. A little bit about myself. I grew up in South Florida, and I grew up doing martial arts my whole life and watching Hollywood movies, wanting to be a soldier. And then I went to the military and did that. And one of the things that I found in my experience is that during the time that I was overseas, we weren't being as helpful as I'd like to be. And my career wasn't going in the direction that I wanted it to go. So, when my enlistment was over, I left the military, and I had, grown up just wanting to do that. So now I'm in my mid-20s. And I don't know what else to do. And I spent about 10 to 12 years just bouncing around from one job to the next, some very high profile jobs, high ticket sales. I worked for nonprofits, for mental health, for veterans, just everything in like extreme polar opposites. I taught law enforcement officers tactics. I was a yoga teacher. So I did all these different things. And as I went through, I got to say probably like at least 12 different types of jobs and professions, because some of them were jobs. Like there was a summer where I had gone through like the spiritual journey and went full monk, right? Like I got rid of everything, and the Bible says, give up everything and follow me. So I was like, okay, cool. So the Beamer, the Rolex, the suits, and I ended up living on a mat. And, I figured out that wasn't the way, but along the path, I learned a lot of different things. I learned different types of meditations, martial arts, different types of, fitness strategies, mind strategies, psychology, mindset, whatever it is. And I did that for a long time. And as I kept on bouncing around, I would always go back to training people. It's something that I've been, naturally gifted at, not because, I think I'm that great at it, but because, it's just sometimes our path is uniquely makes us uniquely qualified for something, right? And my path has made me uniquely qualified for that, where I've worked with, the rich and famous, and I've worked with poor people, and I've worked with people in prison, and I've worked with people that do whatever they want all day because they have that much money and luxury. So during that time, as I worked with different types of people and different types of things, and also consistently, as a personal trainer, I kept on learning different things that have us, reconnect with what we say is your true self. Now, we use that word very, with discretion, right? Because what does that really mean? But I can tell you this, there's definitely certain practices that we can do on our day-to-day lives that have us get connected to what really matters to us, what's important to us, helps us prioritize, and it helps you stay aligned your unique path. We all have a very unique path that is unique to you. And when you're on that path, things are great. You experience more gratitude, more freedom, more love. The right people are attracted to you. The right vibe is coming. And then when you stray from the path, it sucks. You feel more desperation, more frustration. You're around people you don't like. And that's not to say that when you're on the path, everything's always going to be peachy. But there's an underlining sense when you are walking the path, you know it because it feels a certain way. And, I'm seeing a lot of people nod their heads because I'm sure you experience it. Because if you're here, that means there's a point in time where you weren't on the path. I guarantee you that. And so that's what we do. We teach people those mind and body exercises. We combine them in a very unique way. I work with a team of experts, and we all put in our own 2 cents. And, I happen to be the lucky one that gets to put all the pieces together and promote it. So, that's what I do.
That's amazing, man. That is beautiful. So my first question for you is, since you explained a little bit of what the Morph X code is, how does someone start that? What is the first step, right, in finding out a little bit more about yourself? And maybe also, what was the inspiration behind you guys starting this movement that you guys have?
Okay. Well, let me just be very clear. What we say your Morph X code is those are the habits and practices, the mind and body exercises that have you perform your best, your optimal self, or have you get connected to your true self. And for everyone has their own unique code. So for me, I'll give you an example. One of the things that I'm very into is prayer. So first thing in the morning when I do is I wake up and I thank God, specifically thank God for another day. And the last thing I do before I go to bed is I specifically thank God for another day. And I have my own practices. One of those is first thing I wake up, I say my prayer, I go and I drink water right off the bat because, in the past, I used to have very bad eating habits, always had a 6-pack. So in my mind, I was like, I'm in great shape. But when you eat a pack of Oreos a day, it kind of catches up with you as you get a little older, right? So, I've had to have habits that curb that enthusiasm. And one of those things is drinking water with lemon right off the gate. And, so every single person can now start plugging in and taking away those things that have you perform better. And they're, like one of those things may be you put yourself to sleep at 10 o'clock versus midnight, right? So for some people that need to get up early and have, high performance early in the morning, they may put themselves to sleep at a certain time, right around, if you're going to bed around 10, 11 or on 9 o'clock, you're already doing your final routine for the evening, flossing, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, doing your last workout of the day or eating whatever it is that you're going to eat. And so everyone has their unique code. And one of the things that we found is that I've been fortunate to work with a lot of different experts, not only in the personal development industry, but in different industries as well. And one of the things that always stood out to me is that the best performers that I've worked with in every different field, they all practice very similar things. Like most top performers do some kind of physical activity. There's people that go for walks. There's people that practice Tai Chi. There's people that do their jiu-jitsu. There's people that do CrossFit. There's people that do yoga. It doesn't matter. Each person practices their own unique thing. However, what's true for everyone is that if you're going to perform, you have to move your body. It's just the natural mechanics of it. And I wouldn't say that I was like beautifully inspired to do what we do. I think it's more like beat into submission by God. And luckily for us, and luckily for me, he's beyond merciful. And because I definitely went up the wrong tree many, many times. And so to answer your question, how would somebody get started is you have to just do one physical activity per day and do one mind exercise per day. And it doesn't matter. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 17 minutes. I have a friend of ours, Nick and Eric, that meditates for an hour every day. His timeline could afford it. His budget could afford it. And that's his lifestyle. And he needs that kind of type of time for himself to perform at that level. I happen to be someone that I meditate maybe every 2 to 3 days, if I'm lucky. It's not something that's as critical to me. So I would say the biggest thing in getting started is create a practice that's serves you well in your body and serves you well in your mind, and stick to it consistently, because consistency is the key.
I love it, man. Laz, it's great. It's great to have you here again, man. There's so much value that you bring to the table. And every single time I interact with you, I feel like I'm I get inspired and I get that like feeling of like, yo, elevation is getting ready to happen. So I'm grateful. I'm humbled that you want to come round 2 with us. But my question, man, and I think that a lot of people suffer from the negative sides of the thought process. So I'm interested in your mindset. You know, Mel Robbins talks about the 5-second rule, you know, within 5 seconds, make a decision. And, you know, there's all of these other principles, but I feel like inside of human nature, it's natural that the devil's going to get to us in our thought process, in our psychology, to talk us out of doing what our heart wants to do. What are maybe like 1 or 2 really strong mind practices that you know of, or maybe that you practice yourself to kind of combat the devil, combat the negativity, combat the doubt and the fear of the unknown?
Gotcha. And that's such a, you know, you use the word the devil, and most people think that that's like some, you know, traditionally when we hear that term, we think of a, you know, some red object with horns, right? And that's that. You know, I think Cabalists have a very unique way of expressing it when they say it's, you know, Satan is the adversary. It's what you go up against to produce light. It's just like how a light bulb works, right? The way a light bulb works is the electricity runs through the light bulb, and it's the resistance that causes that light, right? And we have to go against resistance. That's just the nature of it. That's why when people, you know, when people start talking about their true self or their path or your life's purpose, it's a very gray area because, you know, there's the microcosm that you are, and then there's the macrocosm, right? You know, right now in this conversation, I'm providing some information for you, but turn around tomorrow, you're providing some information for me. And we're always playing out a character in everybody else's life, right? And I think that it's natural. I think there's things that scientifically we'll be able to discover, and we can point to it and say, okay, this is what's happening. Like one of the things that people have determined is that negativity, depression, anger, happiness, you name it, whatever the feeling, emotion or sensation or mood, it comes in waves. It comes and it goes, just like the tides of the water, right? It comes and it goes. And one of the things is identifying that you're just in one of those moments. And for some people, you know, those moments may last a little longer. And when you're in those kinds of moments, I always think that generically, since there's, you know, a bunch of people on this call, and I can't speak to one thing that works for everyone, but I would say that one of those things that's very close to working for most people in those kinds of situations is gratitude. You know, practicing gratitude, it helps you. You know, we have a Kickstart guide that I'll tell you guys about later, but one of the habits that we talk about as our power habits is gratitude, because your thoughts are a vehicle, right? Every idea starts as a seed in your brain, and then you either decide to speak it into existence, you write it into existence, or you type it into existence, and then it enters the mind of someone else. And now between the both of us, we can take a step closer to having that manifest, right? So the ideas are always going to be on there, and they're subject to get hijacked. And if that idea is a little vehicle, your positive thinking leads it in the right way. Your negative thinking leads it into a ditch. And gratitude is that engine, that energy that powers it. So I would say definitely gratitude. And the other thing I would say is get connected to your source. Now, I know that I happen to be someone that's very faith-based. You know, I've done a lot of bad shit. I'll just say this, okay? So I'm definitely not a role model, okay? I will be very clear on that. The difference between me and most people is that, you know, my friend spends all day working at a bank. I spend all day reading about personal development, practicing it, learning it, teaching it, like that, okay? But there's some people that are atheists and I think that they're perfect, and that's God's intention. If we all believe the same thing, we'd be in trouble, because it's really the blind leading the blind here. And what I found is when people get connected to themselves and lead themselves, we come to the same conclusion. Like Nick's over there practicing whatever he's doing. Eric's over there in Thailand practicing what he's doing. But when we get together, we could agree on one thing: that love's the way. Because the path is the same way. It's, you know, not to get very biblical here, but you know how they say like Jesus is the way. it has nothing to do with anything other than, for all of us, there's only one route. And if you're walking in that route, it expresses itself a certain way. So gratitude is one way, love is another way, that they all lead down the same road. And what's important is that you get connected with what drives you, that force that drives you. And the truth will start to come out, right? It'll start to identify itself. And you can say, wow, I've noticed that I spend a lot of time and a lot of dependability on this leader or that leader or this thought system or that thought system. I haven't taken the time to really look and be in an interaction with that drives me, right? So for me, putting God first is the number one thing. To me, that's the number one rule, is put God first, love your neighbor as yourself, right? And so that's a very difficult thing to understand. Like, what the hell does that mean? How do you know if you're following the right thing or not, or whatnot? But in times of crises, what I've seen, and I'm talking about warfare, which I never did anything real cool and sexy. I did go to the Middle East. I happen to be the guy that everything goes great wherever I'm at, not sexy, right? So if I'm in the helicopter, the guys on the ground get into like an awesome gunfight, supposedly, and, destroy the enemy. I'm like sitting there like, put me in, coach. And if I'm on the ground, the guys on the helicopter see action. It's just the way my career worked. Nothing sexy. But there were situations where you get confronted with death, right? And, I've had near-death experiences riding a bike in Miami and falling off and almost getting hit by a car. I've had tinnitus in the ears, and that was one of the most difficult things to deal with ever. And every time, the two things that I always go back to is faith and gratitude, which is more spiritual than it is a physical exercise type of thing.
Wow. Guys, drop a 1 in the chat if you guys are following along with this and you guys are taking some value so far. I should see 20 people drop some 1s. Actually, I'm one of those 20 people, so I got to drop 1s in there because I'm taking value.
I got to tell you, I'm stretching out a little bit further than I would on my common conversation, but I know that I have a lot of relatedness with you guys. I've worked with you a lot, and I know that you guys aren't afraid to dip your toes in strange waters.
Absolutely, yeah. I know, your programs are so exclusive and they're so amazing. If anyone has a chance to go to, one of the Morph experiences, or just have the personal experience to work with one of his events or go through his Power Habits ebook or so forth, it's so powerful with, Laz, what you're sharing and so forth, mental habits and going through gratitude and how movement and source is all a foundation of everything. And so one of the things I've taken from your events that has always been so powerful, and I think it's, something we don't, as a community or as individuals, we don't spend a lot of time on a daily basis. And I think it's extremely valuable, is the power of visualization. I've been reading more and more of Think and Grow Rich, and how it talks more about, how like the desire and autosuggestion and all of that is being created in our creative imagination or our sixth sense. And I know, so much about visualization, especially at the, at the gymnastics stadium or the thing where we did those events with Jose, and, just how you demand awareness from, we have so many stimuluses going on a daily basis. How do we stay focused on a daily basis with, everything that's going on when maybe we have family or a significant other, we have, our business and so forth. How do we, have such a clear focus and visualization of what we want to accomplish and, stay true to that?
Yeah, visualization is definitely one of my favorite habits because no one can dispute it. Science, modern science is proving the power of visualization and how it alters your reality. NASA, astronauts who are about as scientific as it gets, right? They practice visualization to practice their emergency procedures over and over and over and over again. And, athletes do it, artists do it. It's just one thing that anyone can do. And, staying away from the spiritual implications of it, right? When you're visualizing something, it's almost like you're getting a dress rehearsal. So the more you do it, the more you're dress rehearsing, right? Fighters do it a lot, right? They visualize, okay, if he does this move, I'm going to do that move. If he does this move, I'm going to do that move. And now you went through 6, 7, 8 moves before anyone's even thrown a punch, right? So I would highly recommend visualization. It's great for your relationship. It's great for your work environment. If you're having an issue with a boss who, it's difficult to speak to, you can visualize what's going to happen in your mind. It doesn't mean it's going to go that way, but you get a couple practice rounds. So sometimes, we're intimidated by other people, and you're going to have a conversation that's very confrontational, and they put you back on your heels, and they kind of, manipulate you and get the way that they want with you, right? That's happened to me, more than I'd like to admit, right? And when you visualize, you can practice that conversation. So now when they try to take you in that route, you're like, wait a second, no, I'm going to stick to, I can't forget that I also want extra vacation days. It's a big thing. So I got to keep on bringing the vacation days into the conversation, right? And in your visualization, you're able to practice that. So when it happens, you can perform as you like.
That's beautiful, man. I would like to go a little bit deeper on that from your experience, right? Because that's something, and I'm glad that you brought it up, Eric, that visualization is something that I'm also tapping into more and more for myself. I personally find that because that muscle is not yet fully developed in my brain, there are times that I'm having a hard time really clearly visualizing what it is that I want and holding on to that, right? So for people that are just starting out, and, all of us understand the value of visualizing our best self and our ideal life. But for people that are just starting out, what would be some, like maybe a tip of advice that you would give? Should we focus on how long we're doing it for? Should we focus on just doing it consistently over a period of time? Like,
Gotcha.
do you have an experience that like at one point things shifted in your ability to visualize, just so we can give us a little bit of guidance in that?
Yeah. So I want to say 2 things here. So the Course of Miracles, or Course in Miracles, I always forget the name of the book, and it took me like 4 years to read. Look, I don't promote anyone or anything. I really don't. You guys know that. I would just leave it at that. I really do not promote anyone other than you doing the work yourself and finding your way, right? But I do read everyone's work, or at least, the top things that are popular, the things that people are talking about. If I walk into Barnes & Noble, most of the big books that are in the self-help section, I may have read those, right? But in the Course of Miracles, I think it's one of the best books that does, it brings this idea of not having to force or do a lot of anything to still have it grow and manifest within you. It could take us, one of the things that took me a long time to practice was really being loving right off the bat. Naturally, if you see me as a little kid, I was very loving, but I was also getting myself into trouble all the time. And then as I got older, that guy turned into an asshole. And, I remember having a conversation with one of my girl cousins, and we had gone out to this club, and the club was shutting down, and it was time to go home. And I was like, I'm not going home. And she's like, everything's closed. You have to go home. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to run home. And she's like, dude, you're like making a scene here. I'm like, you don't know who I am. Of course I can run 6 miles. Get out of here. I'll run home. And she's like, dude, you're being an asshole. And it didn't click, right? So after like 2-3 years of doing self-reflection work, I was like, oh my God, she's so right. I am an asshole. Because that person was just who I am. Be over time and time of practice. You can't expect that entire brain to get transformed overnight. And anything that you're starting, it doesn't matter if it's visualization, it doesn't matter if it's gratitude, it doesn't matter if it's CrossFit. The best way to start anything is to start slow and do a little bit. It's the same thing with saving money, right? You just want to start saving money. You want to start with anything, and you put a little bit of money in the bank. You put a couple workouts in. You start doing a couple visualizations. Just paint a picture in your head. Have your, if you want to go on a date, okay, tonight I'm going to, watch TV with my wife. What am I going to do for her? And I'm actually trying to paint a picture in my head. All right, maybe I light some candles. I'm going to make sure I walk the dog. I'm visualizing myself walking the dog so I don't forget. So my wife, when she gets home, she's like, oh, wow, you walked the dog. Great. Right? So I would just really suggest that whatever it is, you start very small and very slow. And what happens is the law of accumulation takes over. over time, it's going to accumulate no matter what. The biggest thing the difference between my most successful clients to my clients that, were not successful long-term is the people that succeed the most are the most consistent. They don't do the most. They're not the best. They don't do the greatest. It's just a little bit of work over and 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 over. Oh, this sucks. Life sucks. I'm so mad. I'm depressed. I'm angry. F these people, F those people, whatever. Just keep going over and over and over and over and over. And then over time it sticks. I know it's not sexy and it doesn't sound cool, but it's the truth. That's why.
I love that, man. There's so much power in that small step, right? I think that so many of us, even me in my own journey, I'm just looking for quantum leaps, right? And the thought of a quantum leap is preventing me from taking the tiny step needed to actually get into motion. The laws of physics. In order for things to go in motion, something needs to put it into motion, right?
Correct.
And we have that power to put things into motion, and it doesn't look like a quantum leap, right? It looks like $100 from every paycheck into an account that you don't have access to. That's what it looks like, right? The super mundane. And I love that you took us there about the not sexy. I love that that's the theme, because here's what I'm learning as a 29-year-old aspiring entrepreneur, whatever you want to, whatever I call myself, right? Here's what I'm learning is that the most mundane things are the things that I need to be doing. Like the things that are so cliche, so not sexy, that is what income producing activity is for me. At least I can only speak for myself. It's those tedious things. So it leads me into my question, man. Out of all of the cliche things that you have heard in your life, Laz, what is one cliche thing that absolutely is accurate and absolutely should be taken way more serious than it is being taken? And something that you've experienced firsthand in yourself of like, man, people have been saying that for years and it's real. I wish I had applied it earlier.
Well, that's a good question. So I feel like I want to say two things. Let me see. I'm going to give you two answers. How's that? One is the answer that I want to give you. The other is the answer that I think is that I truly feel is accurate. Number one is I'm going to talk about a cliche that people talk about that they just have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Excuse my French. That was for emphasis. Okay. Is the don't quit. In the military, that's like a big thing, right? And it's a different level of maturity, right? People, they go on Facebook, they see these inspirational quotes, don't quit, keep going no matter what. Listen, sometimes you need to leave that relationship. Sometimes you need to quit that business. Sometimes you need to stop doing whatever that one thing is that's destroying you. Sometimes you have to do that, and that comes with maturity. So I think that the biggest cliche that people talk about is that it's the opposite of, people think like, oh, listen, sometimes you have to have the maturity to look at a situation and be able to discern whether or not you should continue to do that. On the same breath, people really have a hard time understanding that something can be two things at once. You can be driven and at the same time go with the flow. It actually is possible. You just have to choose which one you're going to be at the time and know when to apply something. Like if I'm doing a humanitarian mission, right, which I have done, I've done, humanitarian work, and we're working in the sun for 3 days with very limited water, like during the Haiti earthquake, right? Very limited water, very limited food, very little sleep. That's the time to, shut up, keep on moving, stay positive, get the work done. That's the time not to quit. But if you are, just taking things on, and this person says, you say yes to this person and yes to this and yes to that, and now you're driving yourself like a mad person trying to, do everything for everyone. No, that's the time where you need to check in, get centered with yourself, figure out what you truly want to do, And sometimes you just have to call people and say, hey man, look, I told you I was going to do this, and I'm not going to do that. You don't even have to explain it. You're just, I'm not going to do that. So I would say don't take one-liner coaching, because we're all unique and our situations are unique. And that would be the cliche. But what I really do feel I should say is, in the Bible, they talk about your altar. This is like taking some leaps and bounds here, right? And you have to guard what's on your altar. Well, think about this. Your altar's right here. That's what you put your attention to. That's what you allow to enter your space in your mind. You continuously have to guard that. So I think that's something that's cliche as well, is you have to put God first. You have to get straight with yourself and your path, and have, the love and respect and mercy for yourself and others, and then build from there. Everything else comes from that, right? They say you can't build a house on a poor foundation or whatnot. You have to get grounded in your source, the almighty power that gives you power, and then the truth will show up. You're either following a false thing. For example, I belong to companies that I worked 70 hours a week, 75, 80 hours a week for a company that their main goal is the business goal. That's not my life goal. So when I go home and I'm supposed to be spending time with my wife and I'm thinking about work problems, and when it's the weekend and I'm figuring out work problems, what's in my altar? It's not love. It's the next sale or the next thing, which is very difficult for us to do, because as human beings, we have to survive. And a lot of times we're doing these things to survive, and we can't discern the difference. So that's what I would say in regards to your question.
I love that, man. And one thing I want to touch on, some of us who have come across Corey Cromray, very successful. He keeps saying this analogy of, did you have to earn salvation? You didn't? Then what makes you think you have to earn a living, right? And his entire philosophy about just allowing things to happen, right? Instead of this premeditated, forced human psychology of, I have to go get this. I have to go accumulate this. I have to go do this, instead of exactly what you're talking about, which is get aligned with yourself, get aligned with your source, and then allow the things to happen in your life. I think it's a beautiful concept. Eric, over to you, bud.
Man, allowing, something I'm still learning on a daily basis, as we get sucked into the 3D world sometimes, coming back to your altar, or, coming back to these different times to be able to, know that you're right where you need to be and so forth is so powerful. Laz, and I love that Mike said the same thing. He was like, I love the concept of not sexy has come up, where it's like, it's like, these are the things that are the daily disciplines. Jim Rohn says success is a few simple disciplines practiced every single day. That accumulates, that you use the word accumulates, it's that accumulation bank is, how much are we compounding into our own mind and our own hearts on a daily basis? Like, what does that look like? And what are we, putting into that space? And so, I want to, ask for you is, like, what are like 2 or 3 daily disciplines? You already gave us prayer. What are some daily disciplines and maybe an exercise that we can do either every morning or every night that is, going to prepare us and, keep depositing and accumulating into, that discipline bank to, towards, us being more successful on a daily basis?
Drink more water.
Amen.
Drink more water. That's actually my first tip for someone who's trying to get healthy, like a new personal development, personal training client. First tip is drink more water. That means know how much water you require, have a system in place for you to, do it. So yesterday I was talking to one of my friends, and I was telling him I finally found another way, since the whole COVID situation. I've working more from home now than before. And so when I worked at the office, I had a system that I used to keep track of my water, of how much water I'm supposed to consume. And so now I'm at home and I thought of a new one. So my goal is to drink a gallon of water a day and a lemon per day, right? So now I just cut the lemon into 8 pieces and I put them all there on my cutting board. And every time I go to my filter, I drink water, squeeze what is it, 1/8 of a lemon in there. And now I can tell, oh, wait, I'm halfway there. I'm 3/4 of the way there. Yesterday I was 7/8. So I would say practice with staying healthy, what you consume and what goes in. What are you consuming as far as what things are you spending your time listening to, watching, etc. The human body is like an organism, right? And everything, it's the senses are designed to pick up information, right? Your skin picks up heat, your ears pick up sound, your eyes pick up light, and all these inputs are they're building you, they're framing you, they're shaping you, right? Think about it this way: if you take a terrorist, right, and you put him in a prison cell and you play super loud music all day, AC/DC as loud as you can for days on end, what happens to that person psychologically? And it's the same thing as you go throughout your day to day. Whatever you're consuming is the most important thing. So if I had to say, what's the one practice that you can do, is practice this guy right here, watching this guy. What you say, what you eat, what you consume, like that.
I love that, brother. I think that's so valuable, man. And, I can attest to that too, because a few years ago, not really sure, 4 years ago, it's when I started to take that very seriously. And for me, came in the form of what I was listening to, because I was listening to a lot of rap. I was listening to a lot of mainstream music. And I realized, man, all the things that they were saying, I was thinking about all the time. And when I had that observation about myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is, I need to change that. And then I changed that with personal development, and my entire life changed. So I love that you said that. And, anyone here that has not done that, observe that, pay attention to that. It is very powerful. It is very valuable. And we deserve to put great things in so that great things can come out. So I love that. Laz, super grateful to have you here. Why don't you, say any last words, any last tips, or anything that you want to close out this call with? And also, please, I know that we spoke before this call. You're generous and kind enough to offer some free content, some free value that people can take home and do some more diving into themselves. Do you mind sharing with the group how it is that they can get that, get access to that, and some of the other things that you offer?
Yeah, sure. And I love talking to you guys. I can talk to you guys for a really long time. I will say this. Let's talk about something that you normally don't talk about. In the sense that you were talking about rap music, right? I grew up on rap music. My first 2 albums were the Sugar Hill Gang and Wu-Tang Clan. I grew up in Miami. It's just the way that it is, right? I don't listen to rap music anymore. I just listen to rap beats. And the reason I do that is because of the language, right? Think about this. If your words create a world, and what you're thinking of creates the world, and what you're taking action on creates the world, then rap music is one of those instances where these people have been gifted with the gift of absorbing the light and sharing it with people. And they're saying things that reverberates in people's minds, that creates more mischief, if you will, more disharmony, if you will. But I wouldn't want to, go too hard on our fellow rappers, because number one, there are some rap songs that I do enjoy. And number two is, only God's the judge. But it does point to that we have to have discipline over what we see, over what we listen to, over who we spend time with, over what actions we do, over the habits that we practice, because no matter what, that is already building you. It's automatic. You have to. We live in a physical reality where your body and your mind are always deteriorating every single moment of time, and then you build yourself up. And if you're not paying attention to what you consume, you could end up in a situation that you don't want to be in.
That's so powerful, man. I love that. What a great concept. That is amazing. Laz, how can people get a hold of you? How can they get in touch with you? How can they get the free value that you have?
Okay, well, just for anyone that's a wave maker, you can always contact us at info@morphexperience.com. That is our team's direct email. You can ask us any question and we'll answer it there. That's for anyone that's the wave maker. In addition to that, if you want to go to our morphexperience.com/kickstart guide, you can sign up and we'll send you a PDF ebook. It's a kickstart guide that walks through the 7 power habits, which are movement, meditation, visualization, writing it down, declaration, gratitude, and sharing. And we talk about why we picked those specifically and give you some basic instructions on it just to get started. I would say the biggest thing that I would want you left with is that if you're a human being on earth, right? If you're walking around, eating, talking to people, etc., chances are 99.9999% that you don't know what you're talking about. Because we're humans and we're limited to our senses, we're limited to our knowledge. Sometimes, people don't understand that we reach a cap, like you can't understand any further. You don't have the intelligence or capacity. We're limited. For example, you can't know everything that's on Google, right? You have a certain limitation. And there's a lot of information out there and you can listen to anyone. So I would say just take your time. That doesn't mean do not have discipline and determination about it. It means don't stress out about it. So take actions little by little, pay a lot of attention to what you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're consuming, who you're hanging out with, what you're building and creating. Because at the end of the day, this is a game of survival. And a lot of times people spend this time, this quality time, this, enjoying our paradise, but they're building things that are not really serving the greater good and your family at large and yourself at large.
I love that. That is beautiful. Agreed. Guys, once again, morphexperience.com. We dropped the link here in the chat. If you're watching this recording, we're going to drop it in the description box so you can go, continue following and using him as a guide, right? That's what we're doing here. So thank you again, Laz, for joining us. For those of you watching recording, God bless you. And we're going to stay around here live for the next 10 minutes or so. And we're going to open the mic and allow the people here to ask some questions directly to you. Thanks a lot, guys. God bless.